Divorce coach Samantha Boss joins Women Winning Divorce to share practical strategies for creating strong parenting plans, navigating toxic dynamics, and rebuilding your life with clarity and confidence.
Welcome to Women Winning Divorce, the podcast helping successful women navigate divorce with dignity so you can protect yourself, your children, and your assets. I'm Heather Quick, founding attorney at Florida Women's Law Group, where women win at life.
This week on Women Winning Divorce, I sat down with divorce coach and mediator Samantha Boss. We talked about the realities of high conflict divorce, why most parenting plans fail without strategy, and how moms can protect their children while rebuilding their own confidence and future. High conflict divorce isn't just about court dates. It's about protecting your children and your peace. Welcome to this week's episode of Women Winning Divorce. I'm Heather Quick, owner and attorney at Florida Women's Law Group. Today, I'm joined by Samantha Boss, a former certified divorce mediator and coach, co-parenting strategist, and co-founder of The Next Chapter. With over a decade of experience and hard-won personal lessons from her own 4-year high-conflict divorce, Samantha helps parents create effective parenting plans, navigate complex co-parenting dynamics, and protect their children's well-being while rebuilding their own lives. Today, Samantha and I will be discussing the realities of high-conflict divorce and what parents need to understand early, how to create parenting plans that actually work in the real world, practical strategies for protecting your children's emotional well-being, and how moms can rebuild, reclaim confidence, and truly thrive after divorce. Welcome, Samantha.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here and share all this wisdom.
I know, and we are so excited to have you. So first, Samantha, for our listeners, would you share a little bit about your background and really your journey to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. I got married really fast. I was one of those fell for the narcissist really quick. In 60 days, I got married. 60 days later, I was pregnant. Fast forward 4 years later, I knew I wanted out. And so I started the process of divorce. It took a long time. I learned so much on what not to do along that way. And I was a highly educated person. I had a master's degree. And I just thought, man, this seems really weird that it takes this long, that it's this hard, that's emotionally draining and all that. Well, fast forward, I was still a teacher educating the youth of America, and I met my unicorn husband. And he was like, you keep helping your friends and family with their divorces. Like, why don't you build this business? And I was like, I'm just a teacher. I'm a mom. What would I have to offer? And I have a lot to offer. In my experience alone and my wisdom of gaining knowledge through helping all these people over the years has really navigated me into this expert when it comes to parenting plans and just navigating high conflict. I didn't realize what I was going through when I was going through it. I thought I could rise above and be that parent that'll just make it work. Even though I was met with resistance, I could still make this work for my kids. And it took a long time for me to figure that out, that no matter what I did, I wasn't going to change him. I had to change who I was and how I parented and co-parented. And so I just learned a lot. I'm a big trial and error type of person, and I keep really good notes about that trial and error. And so when I built this business, it was just from a place of gratitude that I got put through it for a reason. And it's because I'm a really good teacher. And so I know that was my path, that I was just meant to teach people about how to navigate and want more for themselves when they get divorced. They should want to have an easier life. They should want to have clear lines about what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing, and just focus on their kids and not focus money and attention into court for years and years and years like I did.
So you combine, obviously, your professional training as a teacher, but then you became a certified divorce mediator and coach, and then your own personal experience. Tell us a little bit about how your conflict of the divorce shaped the way you guide parents today.
Well, I think first and foremost, I had to own that I was high conflict as well. I think it was easy for me at the beginning to be like, he's the problem, he's resistant, he's this, he's that. No, I was a really good finger pointer. And I needed to really like turn that around and be like, sister, you are part of the problem. And mostly
Mhm.
because I went into it with so much feelings. I went into my divorce feeling a certain way and I was putting my expectations on him. So I think when it comes to coaching my clients, number one, I've been on both sides of the table. So there's not
Mhm.
much anybody can tell me in the 10 years that I haven't felt myself or seen from a client firsthand. And so I think having that lived experience of the emotional trigger of it, of wanting to protect your kids, having that instinct of like what to your core is right, but you're also up against a system that sometimes doesn't always navigate with that first. And so having that understanding that yes, you may feel a certain way, but we also have to bring logical strategy into play here. Otherwise, you're beating a dead horse that you're never going to win on. So I think just navigating the emotions and getting people to a place where I hear you and we'll
Mhm.
use that, but we also have to be more strategic and bringing more data to the story and planning for the future because a lot of parents get stuck in that past story of wanting to prove the validating points of the past and not worry too much about their future. And that's not what you should be doing in your divorce. We got to focus on your future because that's what you're there for. You're there to start your new future and you're there to plan your new future and to get your paperwork for your new future with your kids. So it needs to be forward focused using the past as just evidence. That's it.
And that's true, and that, is, that's not easy for everybody,
No.
right? And it's not what they don't understand
Yeah.
how important that is,
Well,
of
and they're hurt
course.
and they're emotional, and so you're meeting them at a place where you gotta be business, but I also have to have that and I think that's why a divorce coach is so important, like, the lawyer's there to do the business part of it and to protect you and to navigate the legal jargon and to really get the business done. A divorce coach is there to navigate your emotions with it and your feelings with it and playing out the pros and cons and strategizing with you and getting you to talk out your fears and your wishes at a lower rate, cost effective than it is to sit
Mhm.
and use your attorney or your lawyer as your therapist and your coach.
Mhm.
That's not their job. Their job is to protect you. And our job is to help you navigate your emotions attached to all that protection.
I love it.
Yeah.
And, many parents and couples entered the divorce focused on so many things and winning or surviving the legal process. At what point do they realize, if they do, without your coaching, I don't know, that they really need a strategic parenting plan and not just a court order? Because court order just sometimes doesn't really cut
Right.
it
They
for high
realize
conflict cases.
yeah, I think a lot of people that are finding me on social media nowadays, hopefully I'm getting that to them early. I mean, I would love for me to be your first point of contact.
Yeah.
And then I can help you pick the right attorney for your case. I can help you navigate and get you so well educated about all the lingo and what you're going to want for your future so you can really talk to your attorney effectively about the business deal of the parenting plan and the
Hmm.
divorce. I think a lot of parents get to me too late. And so, people always say, well, when should I pull the plug on doing the parenting plan? And I'm like, and here's my deal. And I would love you to hear your input. I think first, because I would rather you have your parenting plan wrote out before you meet your attorney. So your attorney
Hmm.
truly knows what level of education you have about this process. They
Yeah.
know what direction you want for your future. They know what hills you want to die on, what hills you're willing to let go of, and really
Hmm.
what you see your future being like. So they know how to go after that versus just being like, I want divorced. Okay, well, that's a now thing. What do you want for your future? And your parenting plan
Hmm.
is your future. And so I would
Right.
love for people to have that to interview attorneys with and say, hey, how much of this could I get? How much of this have you gotten before? How do you navigate
Hmm.
talking to the other attorney to get them talked into this? How good are you at sales? Because that's really what this comes down to. Can you talk the
Hmm.
other person into the so I think that's where I would ideally want my clients in an ideal world. But most of them come to me after they already have a really crappy parenting plan and they're
I
like, "Can you
know.
fix this? Can you make this better?" And sometimes I can't polish a turd and make it into anything other than what it is. It's a turd and you got to just freshly start over and get it from the roots up and
Hmm.
regrow it and start completely from scratch.
Yeah, those are the worst situations. I would agree. As an attorney, right? Our job is to help people to go try to get you a result. And it's awful when it's like, "Oh, yeah, we just signed this all last week, but I don't I
I don't
want
like
to
it
change
anymore.
it."
Yeah,
And I'm
it
like,
doesn't work for me
"Ooh."
because they don't know what it's gonna be like, and again, having a
Mhm.
divorce coach and meeting them with their emotions, like, I'll give you the example. Christmas morning is so dang important to so many parents out there. They want
Right.
Christmas morning, and I'm like, "Man, Christmas morning is the best negotiating tool you can have in your toolbox."
Uh-huh.
You act like Christmas morning is the biggest deal to you, and you're so emotionally attached to Christmas morning, but on the ass end of that, if you give up Christmas morning, you're able to get something else, and I really don't feel like I've been
Mhm.
divorced engaged for 18 years, I don't feel like my Christmas mornings and all 18 of being separated were if they happen on the 24th, were just as important if they happen on the 26th. And by chance, I think a few times they did happen on the 25th. So, I mean, I think getting parents to understand the big picture of what their new life will look like post divorce, that this is the reality. You will not see your kids on every holiday. You will not have access to your children every single day. You won't be able to check on them
Yeah.
every single moment. And just giving them that truth, but also having that moment of listening to them cry and weep over that and letting that settle, and then say, okay, here's why I want this parenting plan for you, because it's going to be better for you and your kids long term. And again, I think that's why our job and your guys' job is to go get it, to go get that done
Yes.
for them without having to explain and handhold and go through the emotional part of it. You guys are the go-getters. We're the explainers and the emotional help people.
And you did ask, right, about coming in with a parenting plan
Yes.
and at least what you want. And I
Yes.
think that's wonderful. As from this side of the table, we do ask, and not a lot of attorneys do.
No.
We have a whole goals kind of setting and where do you want to
Right.
be? What do you want? Which is can be very overwhelming. Sometimes they don't know. We as their legal team, it's very important for us to know where they're starting, right? It may be, okay, I want to hear you. Now I got to ask a bunch of questions, right? To see if are we going to be able to do that? Like, and oftentimes, not. Our laws recently changed in Florida a few years ago
Yes.
that substantially affect the parenting
Yep.
plans and the time. And now as an overall state and in the law, it is close, it's going to be more equal time.
Right.
And that's really a very difficult burden for many women to just wrap their heads around and understand. But I think it's so important that they have at least spent the time to say, this is what I want, because then we can lay it out for them as far as,
Absolutely.
okay, I want to know where you're starting, because sometimes those expectations are unrealistic given your situation, but sometimes they're not. It just
Right.
might, okay, we're going to have a long road, but
Right.
we can do this. And yeah, really approaching that meeting, that understanding with the attorney with at least some semblance of what you would want it to look like,
Right.
because you're new in the process at the very
You don't
beginning and
know.
you
Yeah.
don't really know and you don't know how it's going to work out. And maybe
No.
you're not even separated yet. So it's just, there's so much that they don't know
Yes.
that can make it challenging, but at least they've thought it through.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I'm not gonna shame anybody, but this was me. I literally thought I grew up watching Young and the Restless. I thought divorces were a trifold blue piece of paper that you just opened, sign, and it was done. Like I was oblivious. This is early 2000s, by the way, not to date
Hmm.
myself, but I really thought it was that simple. Like we just agree that we're divorced and then we
Yeah.
work on a parenting plan and then like whatever we write down, cool together. I had no idea I'd be in court for 8 days and cost me six figures. Like I did not see that coming because I wasn't educated about it. When I said divorce, it took me 6 weeks to say those words. But I didn't
Yeah.
think past 3 seconds past those words. I didn't think who my lawyer was going to be. I didn't think, okay, what if he kicks me out? What if he stops the money? What if he takes the kid? I was so worried about announcing it that I didn't plan it. And I think that's where hopefully with social media nowadays, people are at
Hmm.
least understanding that planning it and maybe even getting an attorney and a divorce coach before you even say those words to kind of get all the balls rolling. But that
Yes.
educational piece, I mean, I don't want anybody to sit here listening thinking that you are going to have a clear mindset during this process. It's one of the most, besides death, triggering things to go through in your life. And so you want to be so educated about, okay, well, what is a visitation schedule? Because most people think visitation and holidays and they're divorced. And it's like, oh, no, 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 no. You have so much more. You need to learn about how you could be protected and how you're going to have rights and accessibility and authority inside of this parenting plan. Like you really need to know more what to ask for. And I just don't want
Yeah.
anybody to have the regret of like, I didn't know I could include that. I didn't know that should have been in there. I didn't know. I didn't
Hmm.
know. And then it costs you thousands upon thousands of dollars later having to go back to try to get that put back in there.
Right. Yes. And that, just for our listeners, you've listened before, you've heard it. It's not like, oh, let's just change that. No, it doesn't work like that. It
No,
is,
no.
it is in
Opening
a lot
Pandora's
of
box.
cases more expensive to
Yes.
go back and make changes
Yeah.
because, yeah, so it's just a lot.
Yeah.
If you can't predict all the circumstances, but if you can get the best situation the first time,
Yeah.
that is a good starting point.
Absolutely.
Because it's not that easy, right?
No.
I've said on the show before, if your lawyer said, don't worry, you can go back to court You need to fire them and find someone else
Doing you
because
dirty.
it is they are. It's not that easy, and who wants to set your client up just to have to modify? Because there are situations where it will, but like, no, don't tell them, just go back as if it's so
As
easy,
if it's
right?
just free, or if as if it's just
Yeah.
a simple fill out this piece of paper and you'll be able to change that one sentence. That's not how that works. And I love that you're
Yeah.
saying that because I pride myself on saying, I got divorced, my kids were 1 and 3, and they're now 21 and 19, and they're part of my business on helping me navigate what they wish more parents would know. And hey, my parents
Mhm.
were both high conflict and they talk about it so openly, but I pride myself on getting people really educated about diapers to diploma. And when you're divorcing and you have just a 4-year-old, you don't even know how to raise a kid. You've only raised a kid to 4. So you don't know what 5, 6, 14 looks like. And so you really need to have a really good role model or mentor or a coach that
Mhm.
knows what it's like not only to raise children, but to raise children in a divorce as a single parent, but then maybe for some of your listeners in a high conflict co-parenting situation, because that's a whole different ball of wax too. And
It
so
really.
having that parenting plan that really gets you diapers to diploma and tries to cover all the major things. I mean, again, when you're in high conflict, there's not a lot of major things. You keep it simple, Sally. You roll out. You know what hills you get to have and what hills you got to let go of, and you're okay
Mhm.
with that. And so navigating high conflict and parenting plans, I mean, it's my wheelhouse. I absolutely love and adore it. And I think people that can get out of that emotional first part and then they hear what I'm saying, they're like, you're right. I was so emotional when I heard it the first time. I didn't know you knew what's best for me. And it's like, I've been where you're at, sister. Hold on. I got you. You'll realize it in a few months, but it's just the emotions. These are your babies, and this is your
Yeah.
future and your finances. And it's so stressful. So stressful. So
So you specialize obviously in high conflict co-parenting situations.
yes.
So let's just talk like about how, this is a broad question, but it's a good place to start. How can a parent protect their children emotionally when communication between the adults is so strained or so toxic
Yeah.
and they're struggling with that themselves?
I think that you just nailed it at the last part. You as that parent, you as mom in your audience has to get her stuff together. You
Yeah.
have to be so emotionally well versed on what are your triggers and what are your coping skills. I chose alcohol as my coping skill back in the
Okay.
day. It
Mhm.
was my
Mhm.
go-to calming. First it started out as a sleep aid, and then it started being an email read aid, and it slowly seeped its way in really really graciously into my life, and it became an absolute heal in my story. For me, it's about getting yourself well equipped with how to calm yourself, how to regulate yourself, and boundaries. I can't be
Mm.
opening emails that are going to trigger me in front of my children because then my children are going to see me dysregulated. So getting your nervous system regulated is what helps your children. We get a lot of clients coming to us in the next chapter and saying, "Okay, how do I help my kid? My kid is freaking out. My kid, tantrums when they come home. They're screaming, they're hollering, they're biting, they're wetting the bed, blah blah blah." And then we start asking them questions about how they monitor themselves, and they're not taking
Mhm.
care of themselves at all. There's no self care, no self love. They're not journaling. They're not doing gratitude. They're not practicing anything. And it's like, so your whole house is dysregulated. That's not good. When your kid walks in from a transition day, they need to know number one, your body, it just exudes calm and peace. But then number two, so does your house. And it's not bombarding with
Mm.
questions about what happened, what'd you do, what'd you that's I'm already triggered just, hearing that
Thinking
question,
about,
right?
right?
And so it's about you being regulated first as mom. That is the number one. I didn't do that. For 8 years, I was stressed, anxious, screaming, hollering, drinking, just verbally, just not conscious of shit coming out of my mouth. And so when you learn how to do that better and your kids see you more as the calm, peaceful parent, they'll start opening up and they'll start asking for help and they'll start coming to you saying, "Hey, I need assistance on this," or "Hey, here's what happened and here's how I'm feeling." And then you get to just exude into them and then they feel so much calmer around you. So for me, if you want to help your kids, you have to help yourself first.
And that's great advice. And it makes so much sense.
Mhm.
And even though it's like you want to fix it, you want to do something other than the hard work
Right. Yes.
that
Yep.
requires you to.
Self-reflection, man, she's evil.
Whew,
When you got to I
yeah.
mean, the first time I said I was high conflict out loud, I was like, "Oh gosh, if he finds out I just said that, like, but it was gross to say out loud, but it was so true because I was walking around thinking that he was the only problem, but he
I
wasn't in
know.
my home, but I was letting him have full control of my mental and
Ooh.
emotional state in my own home where I was
Mm-hmm.
safe. And so I didn't have any boundaries. I let him seep into my home and that's on me. So that created me to be high conflict that I wanted to live in this constant edgy level 10 absurdity and I needed to stop it. And once I learned all my new coping skills, man, it was a game changer not only for me but for my children. Then they just started
Mhm.
pouring into me and asking for help, and things just happened so quickly after that. So there's not a magic pill. It's you got to do the hard work of self-reflection and really see where are you failing yourself so that you're
Mhm.
not failing your children, because they are little sponges and they are watching how you cope and deal when you reach for that beer, when you go out to smoke, when you're vaping, when you're, talking on the phone, you're screaming, yeah, you think you're in the other room. They can sense your energy, they can feel your aura, they know when you're
Mhm.
upset, they know when you're bothered, and then they just spew into that too, and then that's who they become. So, it's really productive for you to fix you first.
Absolutely. Now you talk about creating parenting plans
Mhm.
that are practical, enforceable, very important, but also child-centered. So I'd love for you to unpack that. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Let's talk about the word enforceable. Now, nothing's enforceable till a judge signs it and your ex agrees to it and a judge signs it. But here's the deal. Our parenting plans are designed to be measurable. So they're none of the vague terms of like both parties will agree later. That to me is just like I might as well throw money out my front door and go burn it and watch it to be more entertaining. I'm not going to do that. What I want is very detailed orientation around my visitation time. When does it start? When does it end? How do they get there? Who's picking up? Who's dropping off? Like a dummy could read it and go exactly and know where these kids belong
Mhm.
and where they're at. So everything in my parenting plan is measurable. Holidays, exact dates, not, oh, they're going to celebrate Christmas. Okay, but when does it start? When does it end? Is it happening right on Christmas? Is it a little before? Is it a little after? Same thing with vacations. Everything has this measurable to do or not to do versus
Mhm.
this whole theory, and it is a theory, that we're going to co-parent and we're going to talk things out or we'll later discuss or we'll later determine. No, we
Mhm.
won't. We spent eight
Or we'll
days in
be able to
trial.
agree. We'll be able to be flexible
We're
and agree.
not. And so we go into detail, and here's how I fall. And I would love to know what your audience thinks of this. Again, I raised kids 1 to 3 all the way through as a single parent, co parenting in high conflict. And every time a major decision came up, you can guarantee where we went back to court every
Mhm.
time because I say blue, he says black, left, right. It was always opposites. And so I die on this hill in my coaching. I would rather us write a parenting plan for you, diapers to diploma, and we try to nail out all the major decisions right now, today. I don't care that your kid's 4. We're going to plan for 14. We're going to
Mhm.
plan for 16, and we're going to get them done. Because I would rather have a wrong decision wrote down than no decision wrote down. Because when no decision's wrote down, or it says that we later have to determine, I can guarantee one of two things. He's going to determine it, or I'm going to go broke fighting it. And I don't
Mhm.
want either one of those things. So I would rather take knowledge and wisdom from somebody I look up to that raised pretty decent children and go, okay, well, what decisions did you make? What decisions feel right? And
Mhm.
make a lot of those major decisions now. And I'm not talking like, haircuts. I'm talking major decisions. Will these kids be in sports? Are they allowed to do these things? Will these kids have jobs? You know, uh, are we agreeing that they can have their license when they turn 16? Like get some major decisions wrote down and get them done because again, at least they're done. They're done. We don't have to later
Yeah.
determine or talk. We just get them done from diapers to diploma and be done with it. And there
Mhm.
might be one or two things we've forgotten. That's where I'm going to get to that point where I'm just going to let them have this one and let it go because it's not a hill I want to go back on and fight? Or is it something, yeah, you know what? I do want to spend some money, but I at least have all of them wrote out to graduation as best possible. And that's just for me as somebody that spent their whole co parenting journey in court. And I'm like, wasn't this something we could have determined a long time ago? Every kid does the same thing. And a spoiler alert if you have young children, they all go through the basics of the same things. So why not predetermine? Vaccinations being one of them. And I'm not going to get into pro or against, but are you a vax family or are you not a vax family? Put it in your parenting plan, please, so that it'll cost you less to have to argue that term
Mhm.
later. Do you want braces? If it's cosmetically needed, no. But if it's physically needed for a mouth orientation, then yes, we're going to go ahead and do braces. But if it's cosmetic, the parent that wants them pays for it because it's not necessary for their mouth,
Mhm.
So things like that to just go ahead and nip it in the bud. If I could give any last bit of advice, I'll give this. When it comes to the parenting plan, just know ahead of time. Nothing is fair. I don't care if it's a 50-50 schedule. Nothing will be equal. Nothing will be fair. The quicker you can wrap your head around that and know that if you're the primary parent, you're the safe parent,
Mhm.
you will go broke because you will be the one that will pay for majority of things because you will quickly figure out that it is not worth going to the other side and having the argument about. You will just pay for it yourself and cut your losses financially and know that you did right by your kid by keeping the stress level down.
Yeah, and I think so I think there are a lot of pros to as much specificity in a parenting plan as you can because it'll help you later. So much of the boilerplate ones can be vague
Mhm.
and hey, for a lot of people those work, but the majority. really don't. And we can't, you can, I think it's a good to try. There's always stuff that's going to come up. So
Absolutely.
there are certainly things that you may not know, like your example, 1 and 4-year-old, you really aren't going to know what your child might be passionate about, what they may love. But if you can come up with at least some, like if they, want to play sports and they will, we're going to split the cost. We're not going to say agreed upon sports
Right.
because then that doesn't mean anything. And it's because your ex is not focused on what's best for your child. So they're going to fight you because it's something to fight about.
Right.
And those are kind of things. So I think the more that you can do, the better.
Right.
And it does make it challenging to get to that settlement, but then you have a really solid plan with which to operate on,
Yes.
right? Versus you're always having to concede or they're never going to agree and you do eventually get sick of it. So I think it's a great way to go into it
Yeah.
because it's better than not.
It's better than not having anything. When you don't have anything, like if you don't put extracurriculars as your example, because you have a 4-year-old and you're like, I don't know if they're going to want to play sports. Here's the deal. If they do, great. If they don't, you just don't use the paragraph and
Yeah.
then you're still fine, but you've included it. And it's just to go into the level of detail to show you, we talk about the difference between the school related activities like your basketball, volleyball, cheerleading, band, chorus,
Uh-huh.
something like that, or your travel sports. Those are something completely different and need to be talked
Completely.
about separately with where the world is today. Again, this is modernization of parenting plans, guys. We can't be using the templates from 1984 anymore. Travel sports are a big deal. Technology is a big deal. We need to address those type of things as
Hmm.
much as we can, with also then still allowing my household to be my household, your household to be yours, and we do not have to have the same rules and expectations. And I think that's where, when you're new to divorce, you think your kids are going to have the same world in both homes, and that's not true. I may allow a lot of iPad time at my house and my ex may not, and I got to be
Hmm.
okay with that's just the way it is at different homes. Similar to, and I love analogies if you haven't figured that out, that a third grade teacher may be different than your fourth grade teacher. And you know what your kids did? They adjusted per teacher. They're
Hmm.
going to adjust per parent as well. And so I get a lot of moms, that are like, I want the same bedtime at both houses. And I'm like, that's not something we include in the parenting plan, because I can't have somebody in contempt because they wanted to take their kid to a movie on a Friday night and get home later. Like, that's just not what we're going to do. So when you explain things out to parents and using logic with them and examples,
Hmm.
I think that's where the understanding of like, okay, well, that makes sense of why I shouldn't put that in there. Thank you for explaining it to me. And I think that's just
Hmm.
that educational piece about that sounds great now because your kid's 4, but what about 14? That's
Yeah.
not going to
Hmm.
work. And so we got to make a plan that works all the way to graduation as close as possible. Like you said, it's not going to be perfect, but dang, I pride myself on doing it a good college try on trying to get you out of court, keeping you out of court. So
Yeah.
you can just move on with your life and have a joyful single parenting, maybe meet somebody else and move on and not be stuck in court with that anxiety and that financial loss over and over and over again like I did.
And it's just so true and such great advice overall. Now let's talk about the next chapter, membership,
Yeah.
because you help women rebuild after divorce. So let's talk about, like, what does rebuilding actually look like beyond just getting through it, right?
Well, I think first and foremost, our clients are a lot of high conflict, moms
Okay.
dealing with high conflict, whether they're high conflict themselves and coming out of it or they're dealing with high conflict. You spend so much energy and time in this divorce and you lose yourself and you're like, okay, am
Yeah.
I going back to who I was before I was married? Well, that's never, she's gone. She's been altered now from this divorce and probably marriage. And so
Uh-huh.
she's somebody new. So who is she? So inside the next chapter, we have over 100 trainings with professionals, us, everybody you could think of under all these different categories. Maybe you're on your healing journey. Maybe you need help with finance. Maybe you're on to like co-parenting. Maybe you need help with just your kids and transition days. So we have all of these trainings in there. So kind of whatever you need is in there. But then every Monday we have a Q&A. We just got off of one before this recording. And women are able to just come on and say, this is what happened to me today. I don't know how to see this. Can you give me perspective? Now, we can't give legal advice because we're not attorneys, but ours is more strategy and perspective. Like, maybe this is
Yeah.
what your attorney meant. Maybe you need to go back and ask this question, because we're able to not have the emotion and anger when we're coaching, like they're saying the question. And we're able to say, okay, here's some 3 things to go back and ask more clearly, or here's how you
Hmm.
word this text message better back to your ex. And so able to have real life, week by week engagement of being in a community, first off, with other people going through the exact same thing. It's a private group, only women are allowed, and you stay as long as you want. If you want to come for a month, great. Most of the time people stay for 6 months, if not a year, because they're
Mhm.
able to just come in and ask questions. They're able to get those trainings and just have a sense of community with each other. We just actually hosted a retreat in January where a lot of the women came to that, and we're having another one in July, and so they got to meet each other
Oh, that's
and be
great.
around each other, and just, that retreat was something else of just being able to see women physically grow in that 5 days, but also just connect of like, you've had a horrible story, but I've had a horrible story, but look at us grow and blossom. I mean, that retreat was life-changing. But
Yeah.
yeah, the Next Chapter membership, I wish I would have had it. I was the first person in my whole family to go through a divorce. Nobody really could relate to what I was going
Mhm.
through.
Mhm.
Nobody really understood the financial burden or what it was like to not have your kids for 3 days over the weekend, and how empty you feel and how abandoned and how shameful that feels. And so all these women can relate to those feelings and then coach each other through it and help each other through it. And just
Yeah.
2 o'clock in the morning, you can jump on and be like, I'm having nightmares. Boom. There's probably 2 other people up with you that are like, I got you. What was your dream about? And just being able
Mhm.
to have that sisterhood. That was truly the thing that we noticed at the retreat, was the sisterhood of just women of all ages, shapes and sizes and colors coming together with one common trait of, I want to do better for myself so I can pour into my child.
Let's talk about these women coming in, and how do you help the moms shift from survival mode
Yeah.
into, being able to make decisions, feeling empowered about that? Because, when you've been in that fight or flight for so long, it really takes a while to see
Yeah.
things differently.
I think a couple things. I think the weekly calls really help, but I also think having the professionals that we do come in and talk about nervous system regulation and giving
Mhm.
them, today we did one where we were talking about meditation, and we were talking about being able to journal and to do box breathing and just things like that. So it's able to validate them that, yeah, it's okay to feel this way, but what's it going to feel like when we
Right.
learn some better tools to feel a different way?
Mhm.
And getting them to trust, again, not their former self, but their new
Yeah.
self that has all of this knowledge now about people and trauma and how strong she was to leave and to get through all of that, and who is she now? But who does she want to be? We have people talk about future hobbies and plans inside of the group to get them to have something to look forward to. Because here's what I've learned. My kids, like I said, are grown now from my divorce. I also have a second set of children with my unicorn husband who are 6, 7. And seeing adult children navigate adult life is just as hard as I think as raising little kids, and so being able to, though, my big kids know that I'm not just a mom, I'm a business owner. And so
Mhm.
what is that? So when these women come to us and they're like, I don't get to be a mom for 3 days because they're gone and I feel like my job is not, like, I have nothing. It's like, okay, well, let's fill those 3 days. Who are you besides
Yeah.
being a mom? And maybe it's this new hobby, maybe it's a new interest, maybe it's a new thing that you were never even could have even fathomed doing in that marriage. And so getting them to just express themselves and tap into different things and rebuild, because when your kids get asked, who's your mom? It's not just she's a mom. My kids would be like, "Oh, she's
Yeah.
a strong business owner that empowers women to think for themselves and act, and she educates people all the time." I mean, I can just hear my kids on how they talk about me, and mom is not one of their first words out of their mouth. It's always me
Mhm.
as a person on who I am. I help people. I give to people. I navigate things for people. So I
Mhm.
think that, like, we get the women to focus on who they are, because you got to be prepared when your kids leave, because you're like, what? Like, because they're going to leave when they
Yeah.
get older. And so who are you besides waiting till they're 18 to figure that out? You need to figure that out to show them that they should be
Mhm.
more than just your child, too. Who are they outside of being your son or daughter? They should be who? Are they a giver to the community? Are they kind? Are they a sports person? Are they a book reader? Like, they have an imagination? Like, who are they outside of just being your kiddo?
Absolutely. That's such great advice. And it's the earlier the better,
Yes.
right? Because, and that doesn't even, really dig into, you may need to have something financially. You certainly
Yes.
should, but most likely you will. So better start now, ideally, and then get
Absolutely.
yourself that. And I think it does serve you better, and it will serve your children a lot
Yeah,
more.
absolutely. I think anybody should have constant outside sources of money coming in to where you don't feel like if that child support stopped, your life has to stop. your life doesn't miss a
Right.
beat, and we see too many women rely too much on the financial help from their ex that could
Yeah.
stop in a second. And so
Mhm.
you shouldn't have to be building from panic mode. You should be already building a sustainable
Mhm.
life on your own and living the best life you can without that financial assistance as best
Yeah,
possible. It takes years to build sometimes, but
it
you got to
does.
get to that point. You have to know that you can do it all on your own and not have to have them.
Yes, and once you do, as
Mm,
we talked about the energy and how you show
mm,
up, your children
yeah.
are gonna see that, and that is gonna give them the strength, the understanding, but just the appreciation, and it's
Yeah,
gonna
and
help model for them.
And to teach them how to go get it for themselves and not depend
Yeah.
upon anybody and not to rely upon other things and outside resources and just to go dig for. I mean, my kids watching me build this business, they saw me in the trenches. They saw me on a
Mhm.
computer late at night, getting up early, brainstorming, whiteboarding, calling, doing, and now I'm reaping the benefits of that hard work. And so are they from the financial
Mhm.
gain that it's given us all. And so they know that I've built an empire and it started in a basement with a small thought and they watched this puppy grow because I nurtured it, outside of just being a mom. I was nurturing this business as well. And then now they're reaping the benefits as well. So, yeah, it's very empowering. And now they're entrepreneurs, and
Love it.
that's it's full circle. We're all doing what we're good at. And
Mhm.
again, we have to know what that is. And it's sometimes
Yeah,
just testing 10 things to see what one sticks to know what you're good at.
exactly. Now, for the woman listening who feels stuck in a high conflict dynamic and unsure how to move forward, what would you tell her?
First off, you're not alone, and your life won't always look like this. And I really truly thought that when
Mhm.
I started my process, and I'll never forget, I was in my office when my paperwork came through, and it was like, okay, after 8 days of court and, 6-figure divorce, you're doing 50-50. And I was like,
I
that's what
know.
we were doing for 4 years. What do you mean we spent all that money just to do what? And so I just got hit with this stick. And the light at the end of that tunnel was so small. Like I thought this was going to be my life forever. It was I could not see that light to save my life. And so I went into co-parenting with this negative, just,
Mm.
oh, woe is me, victimhood. I can't believe nobody gets it. It's so hard. He's this. And again, the light was so small. But when I started to change my inner dialogue and how I talked to myself and how I took care of my body and how I slept better and I stopped drinking and all these things, man, that light got a lot brighter. And life started changing really fast. And in walked my unicorn husband. And just, I had 2 more kids and I built this empire business. Like when I changed, my life changed. And I know things are
Mm.
happening to you, but instead of saying, oh, look what's happening to me, look what's happening to me, how about change the perspective and say, okay, this isn't happening to me, this is happening for me. My divorce happened for me. I know it sounds really weird, but when I was going through my 8-day trial, like day 4 or 5, I think I was in the bathroom getting sick and because of nerves, and my mom was in there, and I'm like, Mom, I'm like, why is this like? Why can't my divorce just be easy? Why can't it just be
Right.
simple? And she just said, Samantha, she's like, God has a plan for you. And I don't know what it is, but he has a plan for you. And then here we are. And now my
Yeah.
business is helping people navigate all the things, not that to do what I didn't do, don't do it this way. This is the wrong way to do. And so I just truly know that like this is happening for you. You might not want
Mhm.
your divorce, but it's happening for you because maybe your life is going to take a complete turn and something awesome is going to happen. And even if you don't believe that, what's it hurt telling yourself that for a little bit and see how much better you feel? See how much better you present to your children by just saying, you know what? Maybe I don't want this divorce, but I'm just going to start telling myself it's happening and
Mhm.
I'm wanting it now. And just see how maybe something gives in your divorce just a little bit versus meeting everything with resistance because that's not been working for you. So your life will change when you're ready for it to change, when you make steps for it to change. It won't
Mhm.
change if you keep fighting the negativity. You're just going to be met with negativity.
Very true. Very true.
Mm,
But before we do go, our show is Women Winning Divorce, and I
I love it.
believe you can win at life. But I'd love to know what winning at life means to you.
Oh gosh, so easy. 4 kids that look at me. Oh my gosh, I'm going to cry. 4 kids that look at me and know that I'm killing it in life. Like, for me, they know I'm at the top of my game in my field. They know I'm married to a very amazing person. They know I'm nailing it. One of the things I didn't do well was show up for myself with my first 2
Mm.
kids. And so my older kids are really transparent. We're very all transparent family. We say our feelings. We've all been to enough therapy. We talk openly and honestly. We don't keep secrets. And so they're like, the way you're showing up for those 2 boys versus how you showed up for us, they see the difference. And so I think it's a matter of I'm winning because I'm showing up for myself, which pours into all of my children. I exercise regularly, I eat really well, I go to all my Pilates, I do the things that I love to do first, and then that pours into my children. So that's me winning. I'm winning because they can see me doing myself first. I'm taking care of myself first. So for me, it's just having 4 kids proud of me.
Well, and lastly, where can our listeners find you and learn more about Samantha Boss LLC in the next chapter?
Yeah, you can go to samanthaboss.com. You can type in the ugly truth of divorce anywhere and it's going to pop up. So if you're on Instagram or you're a TikToker or a YouTuber, wherever, the ugly truth of divorce or just Samantha Boss, my name, will get you anything you need. Again, I really think I have a master class that I just think if you've heard today and you've heard me talk about parenting plans and you're like, oh, I didn't know that. I want to know more. I give just a class. I don't have to write your parenting plan because it is an investment. But the master class is super affordable. It's $127. And you can just go and learn about what is this lingo you were talking about with holiday schedule and what kind of vacation should I be asking for? And again, it's specialized for a high conflict dynamic, which anybody can be high conflict. You can be best friends when you divorce, but you have no idea when your ex gets with somebody new, what will happen to your story. So I would rather you just err on the side of caution and be overly educated and well prepared. And so that masterclass is really a low entry level item that just go get yourself well versed, well educated to where you feel more confident talking to your attorney, talking in mediation, or just talking with your ex. And it really explains a lot about the process and the parenting plan.
I love it. Well, we've reached the end of our show today. Thank you so much, Samantha, for joining us and for sharing your insight on navigating high conflict divorce, building strong parenting plans, and helping women move forward with strength and clarity. Your guidance will help so many parents protect what matters most, their children and their future.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Listeners, if you or someone you know in the Northeast Florida area is going through or even thinking about divorce, you're not alone. Taking that first step can feel overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. Our newsletter is filled with actionable advice tailored to guide you through this process. By signing up, you'll gain the tools to face the unknown with courage and see if we're the right fit to support you during this life-changing time. Don't wait. Click the link in the show notes, fill out the form, and take the first step toward building a brighter future today.